Last year, the Japan GP at Suzuka was in September, and it saw 5 DNFs and Red Bull solidifying the Constructors' Championship. The race wasn't the most exciting, but it wasn't a snooze fest either. Perez bumping into other drivers, both McLarens making the podium, and the Mercedes battling it out between themselves. There was a late push by Carlos Sainz to pass George Russell, but that was about it. However, this year is the 4th race of the season, and may offer some interesting twists in this year's lineup of cars. So let's see if we can predict the Japan Grand Prix and see if the voodoo wheel continues its win streak and go 3-0. Hey yo, Chris here, and thanks for tuning into the Delta. Hit that like button and consider subscribing. I believe that those two things are the lifeblood of any YouTube channel, and I'd greatly appreciate it. I believe this is my first time really looking into this race. I ended up missing the race in Suzuka the last few years for one reason or another, probably because it's in the middle of the night and it's also in the midst of the NFL season. So I personally don't really know what to expect because I've never had any experience with it. But because of the placement in the F1 schedule, I think we may see some more mechanical issues as some cars' power units, gearboxes, and other components start to accrue some wear and tear. It's a 53-lap race and only has one DRS zone, and it crosses over itself, so that's a very interesting dynamic. Let's get into it. To kick things off, we'll start with the biggest loser. Last year, Valtteri Bottas placed last as he was bumped into by Logan Sargent and was ultimately forced to retire his car. He isn't a kick Sauber, so in theory he could easily finish in last place again this year, but for my pick for biggest loser, I'm going to go with Daniel Ricciardo. This isn't because I think he'll finish last, assuming he completes the whole race, but because he's just had a horrible start to the season. RB is a split team, and on one hand you have Yuki Tsunoda giving it his all and pretty much maximizing the performance out of that RB. Then on the other hand, it seems that RB and Ricciardo cannot get on the same page. Daniel isn't racing his best and the team isn't optimizing the car to his liking. The result is a disappointing season thus far, and this isn't a season where we believe Danny Rick was going to make a hard push for a presumably open Red Bull seat next year. They may put the puzzle pieces together at some point, but not in Japan. Daniel Ricciardo finishes in P16 or worse and disappoints us again. Moving on to exceptional performance. I'm going to go with Yuki Tsunoda. I don't think every exceptional performance will go to the driver who's racing on their home track this year, but we'll go with that narrative again for this weekend as well. As much as Daniel Ricciardo is struggling, Yuki is kind of impressing. The car by no means is a rocket ship, but since the first race he has shown that he has had pace and is finding performance much better than his counterpart. Yuki placed 7th in Australia for the team's first points of the season and put RB in the competition of the mid-tier teams. If I had a complaint about Tsunoda, it would probably be that he tends to have a juvenile attitude when things aren't going well for him, but when things are going in his favor, it's because he's performing out there. So what is an exceptional performance from Yuki? I'd say if he finds his way into points for a second race in a row on his home track, driving that RB, then we should all give Yuki Tsunoda a firm handshake and a pat on the back. The next pick I'll be making is the letdown performance. While some teams and drivers have exceptional performances on race weekend, others become a letdown. And this race's letdown performance will go to Haas. In Australia, I nailed the shocker pick where Haas scores double points. In Japan, I think they come back down to earth. Haas is surprising us all, and Nico Hülkenberg is showing up every race weekend and putting together solid driving in practice and quali, or the race, or some combination of them all. Then we have Kevin Magnussen out there, exemplifying team driving and executing the orders that Ayu Komatsu comes down with. So why would they be a letdown? Well, despite their surprising start to the season, I think it has to come to an end at some point. That doesn't mean I don't think they can return to the points later, But for this particular race and this uniquely fast track, I just don't think Haas has the pace or speed needed to place in the points, or to even be close in the points for that matter. Both drivers place in P13 or worse in Japan. Okay, now it's time to go to the shocker pick. I nailed the shocker pick in Australia, so I'm feeling myself. I'm feeling pretty confident, so I'm gonna do it. It's the shocker pick, and I want to see it happen, and I'm gonna go for my home country guy, Logan Sargent. Logan Sargent will score his first points of the season in Japan. Why? Well, like I said, it is the shocker pick. It's not supposed to happen, but after Williams screwed him over in Australia and gave his car to Albon, who couldn't find points himself, I believe that this is Logan's chance to prove himself. What are his limitations? Well, himself, obviously. He clearly isn't the world's greatest driver. But also Williams. Before the season started, James Vowles said Sargent has gotten better and that he believes in him. And then the debacle there with only having one chassis and one car for the Australian GP, that clearly proved that James Vowles does not believe in Sargent. But this is Logan's chance. The car, while not great, has point-getting potential, especially if we get a few DNFs. And if I were him, I'd want to prove myself. Prove to Williams, prove to James Vowles, prove to everyone really, that benching him in Australia was a mistake no one will make again. And Logan can do that if he finds himself into P10 or better at Suzuka. Now time for my favorite picks of the whole segment, the podium picks. The two drivers I choose to join the winner there on the podium. Last race, I went 2 of 3 with Sainz and Leclerc on the podium. I know Sainz won, but that's still the podium, so I'm going to take those 2 points and run with it. But for this race, I'm going to say this one's kind of hard. Obviously, I feel like Verstappen wants to reclaim his dominance. That's a no-brainer. Then you have Perez, who wants to have a better showing than he did in Australia. And then we have Ferrari, who wants to keep the momentum moving forward. And then you have McLaren, who wants to show that they can keep up with Ferrari. Then you have, obviously, the dark horses like Hamilton, Russell, and Alonso, who can always, at any point in time, find their way into 3rd or 2nd place. So, technically speaking, we have a potential of 9 drivers to reach the podium. It just really comes down, who do we really think can do it? I think I'm going to go with a Ferrari driver first. Sainz proved in Australia he gives no dams. If he has a good race weekend and feels he has a chance, he's going to take it, and rightfully so. He is a lame duck for the remaining of the season. However, I don't necessarily think things will go as smooth for the smooth operator in Japan. I think Leclerc has shown great driving skills despite his car not being optimal for every race this year. He had brake issues one race where he managed to hold 4th place the entire time. And he also didn't have the most comfortable of drives there in Australia, and still he managed to finish P2. It's time for Ferrari to get that car in order, and if they do, Leclerc will get the go-ahead in front of Sainz. I don't know if Sainz will like that, but technically Leclerc is closer to Verstappen in the Drivers' Championship, so you'd probably want Leclerc to score the most points possible if that was available to them. So I will go with Leclerc on the podium. Joining Leclerc on the podium, I have Sergio Perez. I know it's probably a safe pick, that it's not super exciting, and I'd love to choose a McLaren to go up there. I love both of the drivers. I think I would enjoy seeing either Piastri or Norris up on the podium with Leclerc, but I'm also being realistic, presuming that there's nothing wrong with any Red Bull or Ferrari car. Norris said he believes that they have pace catch Leclerc, or had pace to catch Leclerc there in Australia. And I don't necessarily subscribe to that. I do believe McLaren is fast, but I also think that Leclerc's car was not optimal. So while McLaren is close to Ferrari, I don't think they're faster than Ferrari close, if that makes sense. And then if you're not as fast as Ferrari, you're certainly not as fast as Red Bull. And like I said, we're going to presume that we're in a vacuum and all 4 cars of the Red Bull and Ferrari are good to go. I just don't think the McLarens have it to catch the podium this weekend. And then that basically just leaves Sergio. I mean, obviously, if Checo gets a penalty like he can, or spins out, or DNFs, sure. I can see Lando or Piastri up there. I just don't see Perez putting together 2 bad races in that Red Bull. And because of that, he will join Leclerc on the podium. Now it's time to go for the least exciting segment of the episode, the winner. I'm going to go with Max Verstappen. He can't blow his brakes out 2 races in a row, can he? Can his car fail him in any capacity consecutively? I suppose so, but it's just not very likely. Until I see some more from the rest of the field, or some signs that that Red Bull car may not be as reliable as they would like, I'm just going to go back to the Max Verstappen wins because he's the greatest. It's pretty good reasoning. I mean, I feel like you'd be an idiot not to go with that, right? I'm sure Max doesn't like the gap that he's in with the other drivers in the championship. I mean, he's only 4 points ahead of Leclerc, 5 in front of Perez, and only 11 off of Sainz, which could be tighter if Sainz didn't have his appendix explode on him there in Saudi Arabia. In theory, if he has another mechanical failure or a bad race for whatever reason, he could be jumped by all 4 of them this weekend. That would be super exciting. I just don't see it happening. Red Bull is going to make sure that that car is in tip-top shape, and Verstappen is just gonna cruise to another easy victory and probably start another victory streak. Now, let's move on to the voodoo wheel and see if it can continue its streak of mysticism for a 3rd race in a row. Last week, it landed on Podium Plunge, all right, where it cast a spell on the podium drivers of the previous race, and while we all saw Max Verstappen didn't even finish the race. The race prior to that, it landed on the 6th place team, Kick Sauber, and Kick had pit stop troubles that made them finish last and lose that 6th place spot in the constructors. Because of last week's performance by Yuki, Haas actually loses the 6th place spot in the constructors standings, and now RB takes their place. We only put the top 6 teams on because the bottom 4 don't need any additional voodoo to interfere with their race. Could you imagine Alpine getting struck by voodoo? So we spare them. But let's find out what will happen this weekend. Oh, that's a good spin. That's a good one. Oh my. Hopefully that's not too loud. Wow, what a great spin. That's tons and tons. Winners woes. Oh my. Sorry, Carlos. I hate to do it to you. All right, winners woes is exactly what it is. The winner of the previous race has a bad following race. My guy right over here, Carlos Sainz, he got the voodoo. He got the voodoo. So, those are my predictions for the Japan Grand Prix. I hope it's an exciting one. It's a pretty fast track, so I believe it lends favor to the faster teams like the Red Bulls, Ferraris, and McLarens. So maybe the front of the pack won't be that exciting, but the midfield and the back markers might give us something to watch. Is there anything you want to see happen this weekend? Let me know in the comments below. Or maybe you can share what your favorite Japan GP has been in the past so I can look it up. I'm always looking for exciting history in Formula 1. But anyways, thanks for watching. My name is Chris, and you've tuned into the Delta. Don't forget to stop by the Delta Twitter where I post video uploads, schedules, stream updates, various things, F1 related news and articles, stuff like that. Also talking about Twitch, I will be streaming F1 Manager on Thursday night starting around 10 p.m. Eastern here in the US, where I will try not to mess up the strategy Ferrari like I did last race in Australia. The links for both Twitch and Twitter will be in the description below. But until next time, take care, stay safe, and have fun out there. Bye, everybody. Hey everyone, thanks again for tuning in. If you're enjoying this video, you're going to love what we have over on Twitch. Over there, I may play many games, but with the F1 season quickly upon us, I want you to join me with some F1 gaming content. I am thinking of playing games like F1 23 or F1 Manager on Thursdays and or Friday nights prior to the actual race in real life. For example, if they are racing in Silverstone, we race in Silverstone, and see how we stack up as a driver or team manager. Over there, we can chat about F1, share some opinions, stories, jokes, or anything really, accompanied by some fun Formula One gameplay. Head over to the Twitch channel at twitch.tv/delta_4_7_G to join the fun. Don't miss out, hit that follow button, and be a part of the action. See you there. Oh, too fast, slow down. Oh, missed all those.